I found the surveyor's stakes missing on a Tuesday morning, and the hole in my stomach told me this was not an accident. My knees hit the red clay dirt at the northeast corner of my lot, fingers raking through pine needles where the orange-flagged marker should have been standing. The hole was there, clean and deliberate, like someone had worked a stake back and forth until the packed earth gave up its grip. I crawled to the next corner. Gone. The western boundary marker that had been there 3 days ago when I walked the property with my contractor, pulled clean out of the ground. "Daniel, you looking for something?" I turned to see Bobby Chen, my neighbor's 12-year-old son, standing at the property line with his bike. The kid lived 2 lots down in one of the older houses in Pinehurst Meadows, the rural subdivision outside Pittsboro, North Carolina, where I had just closed on 2 acres of pine and possibility. "The survey stakes," I said, standing and brushing red dirt from my jeans. "Someone pulled them up." Bobby's face changed, the casual curiosity replaced by something that looked like guilt by proximity. "I saw that." My pulse kicked up. "You saw someone pull them?" "Yeah, Sunday night. I was riding back from Tyler's house after dark and I saw Mrs. Ridgway out here with a flashlight. She was yanking on one of those orange flags." "Karen Ridgway? The HOA president?" "Yeah, she had a hammer or something pulling them up. I thought maybe she was helping you move them or something, so I did not say anything. But she looked mad." I let that sink in. Karen Ridgway had been on me since the day I submitted my building plans to the Architectural Review Committee. My house design was too modern. My driveway approach was too steep. My planned fence was not the approved white vinyl. Never mind that half the subdivision had split rail cedar fences, and the covenant specifically listed that as acceptable. Karen wanted vinyl, and what Karen wanted, she campaigned for with the fervor of someone who had built her entire identity around a volunteer position. "Bobby, I need you to tell me exactly what you saw. What time, what she was doing, everything." The kid looked nervous. "I do not want to get in trouble." "You are not in trouble. But I am about to be in serious trouble if I cannot prove where my property lines are. I have a foundation permit that depends on those stakes." He swallowed. It was like 8:30, maybe 9. Still pretty light out because of the summer. She had her big flashlight and she was pulling up the stakes on this side of your lot, the ones near her property. She put them in a plastic bag. "Did she see you?" "No, I stayed on the road, but I watched her for a minute before I rode home." I pulled out my phone. "Bobby, I am going to need you to maybe tell this to some other people. Is that okay? I promise you are not in trouble, but this is important." "Okay, but can you not tell my parents yet? My mom does not like when I'm riding around after dark." "Deal. Go on home. I will call you later." The kid pedaled off and I stood there in the middle of my lot trying to process the audacity. Karen had not just complained or filed a violation notice. She had committed property crime, tampering with survey markers that had been set by a licensed surveyor and recorded with Chatham County. Those stakes were not suggestions. They were legal instruments. I called my surveyor's office, a small firm called Precision Land Surveys based in Chapel Hill. The receptionist put me through to the field crew supervisor. "This is Taylor Dawson." The voice was younger than I expected, female, and carried the clipped efficiency of someone who had been dealing with construction delays all morning. "Taylor, this is Daniel Drake. You surveyed my property on Meadowbrook Lane last week, the 2-acre lot in Pinehurst Meadows." "I remember. Clean boundary, good monuments from the original plat. What can I do for you?" "Someone pulled up all the stakes." Silence on the other end, then a very controlled exhale. "Pulled up, not knocked over by equipment?" "Pulled up, deliberately. I have a witness who saw the HOA president removing them Sunday night." "Are you kidding me?" The control was gone now, replaced by genuine anger. "Do you know how much work goes into setting those? We do not just eyeball property corners and stick flags in the ground. We pull original deeds, we measure to the inch from established monuments, we file those locations with the county. Someone tampered with survey markers. That's what I'm telling you. That's a crime. Like an actual statute crime. Who does that? Someone who does not want me building my house, apparently. Look, I need those stakes back. I have a foundation contractor scheduled to break ground Friday, and the county inspector will not sign off on the permit without verified boundaries. I'm coming out there today. What's your address again?" I gave her the lot number and street. "How fast can you get here?" "I'm finishing up a job in Carborough. I can be there by noon. And Mr. Drake? Daniel. Daniel, if someone pulled certified survey monuments from your property, we are documenting everything. Photos, measurements, statements. This is not just your problem anymore. This is tampering with professional survey work, and I take that extremely seriously. Good. Because I am about to lose my construction loan timeline over this, and I take that extremely seriously too. I will see you at noon. Do not let anyone else on that property until I get there. She hung up, and I stood in the middle of my bare lot, looking at the empty corners where my property lines should have been marked. The pine trees swayed in the June heat, and somewhere a Carolina wren called from the underbrush. 2 months ago, I had closed on this land with the dream of building a home from scratch. Modern design, clean lines, plenty of glass to let in the morning light. I'd saved for 8 years, working as a project engineer for a civil firm in Raleigh, and finally had the money and the courage to build something of my own. Then I met Karen Ridgway. She had appeared at my doorstep the day after closing, a printed copy of the subdivision covenants in hand, and a smile that did not reach her eyes. Karen was maybe 55, with the kind of highlighted blonde hair that looked expensive, and a wardrobe of pressed linen that suggested she took her role as HOA president very seriously. She welcomed me to the neighborhood, handed me the covenants, and then spent 20 minutes explaining all the ways my proposed house would not fit the character of Pinehurst Meadows. I had listened politely, then pointed out that my plans met every requirement in the covenants. She had frowned, made a note on her tablet, and told me the Architectural Review Committee would be in touch. They had been in touch 3 times, each time with new objections that seemed pulled from thin air. My house was too tall, except the covenant allowed 35 feet and I was at 32. My exterior was too modern, except the covenant only specified quality materials, and I was using fiber cement siding and stone veneer. My landscaping plan did not include enough native plants, except there was no landscaping requirement in the covenants at all. Each objection had delayed my permit process. Each delay had eaten into my construction timeline. And now, with the permits finally approved and my contractor ready to start, Karen had escalated to actual sabotage. I walked the property line, photographing each missing stake location with my phone. The holes were clean, the soil disturbed in a way that showed deliberate extraction rather than weather or accident. At the northeast corner, I found a scrap of orange flagging tape caught on a pine root, torn off at the stake base. My phone buzzed. Text from my contractor, Mike Santos. "Still good for Friday? I have the excavator lined up," I typed back. "Stakes are missing. Surveyor coming at noon. We'll update." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then, "Missing how?" "Pulled up. Working on it." "Jesus. HOA? Probably. Good luck, man. Let me know." I sat down on a stack of lumber I had delivered last week, 2x10s for the deck framing that would not happen if I could not prove where my house was supposed to sit. The sun climbed higher, heating the red clay and pulling resin smells from the pine. A hawk circled overhead, riding thermals. Everything around me was moving forward except my construction schedule. At 11:45, a white pickup truck with Precision Land Surveys decaled on the door rolled up my dirt driveway. The woman who climbed out was maybe 30, dark ponytail pulled through a baseball cap, wearing cargo pants and a technical shirt that had seen some field miles. She carried a clipboard and a camera with a serious lens. "Daniel?" "That's me." Taylor Dawson walked toward me with the stride of someone who spent more time outdoors than behind a desk. She had sharp eyes that were already cataloging the property as she approached, taking in the tree line and the cleared building pad and the obvious absence of survey markers. "Show me." I led her to the northeast corner first. She knelt down exactly where I had, examining the hole with careful attention. She took photos from multiple angles, then pulled a measuring tape from her belt and documented the hole diameter and depth. This was pulled by hand or with a tool. You can see the leverage marks where it was worked back and forth. She pointed to score marks in the clay. Not equipment damage, deliberate removal. That's what I thought. She moved to the next corner, repeating the process. At each location she made notes on her clipboard, took photos, and measured. When we reached the 4th corner, she stood and looked back across the property. All 4 primary boundary markers gone. The offset stakes are still there. She pointed to a cluster of wooden stakes about 20 feet inside the property line. Those are reference points we set for the builder, but your legal corners, the ones tied to the recorded plat, all removed. Can you replace them? I can do better than that. She pulled out her phone and started scrolling. Your property was surveyed and recorded with the Chatham County Register of Deeds last week. We filed the plat with certified coordinates for each boundary monument. That means the land court has official record of exactly where these markers are supposed to be. Okay. So we do not need to resurvey from scratch. We just need to reestablish the monumented corners from the recorded coordinates. I have the GPS data on my equipment. I can set new stakes today, but more importantly, I can file an incident report with the county showing that the original monuments were tampered with. Will that help? It will create a legal record that someone interfered with survey markers. In North Carolina, that's a Class 1 misdemeanor under Statute 14-147. It is taken seriously because property boundaries are not a joke. If you cannot prove where your land is, you cannot prove ownership, you cannot build, you cannot function as a landowner. So what do we do? Taylor's expression hardened. First, I reestablish your corners with new monuments. Then I photograph and document everything. Then I file a report with the Register of Deeds office showing the tampering and the corrective action. And if you want to pursue charges against whoever did this, that report becomes evidence. I have a witness who saw the HOA president pulling them up. A credible witness? A 12-year-old neighbor kid who was riding his bike past here Sunday night. He saw Karen Ridgway with a flashlight and a hammer, pulling up the stakes and putting them in a bag. Taylor let out a low whistle. The HOA president, of course it is. I have surveyed a dozen properties in this subdivision, and every single time there is some drama with the HOA. But tampering with survey monuments? That is bold. She has been trying to stop my build since day one. Objections, delays, anything she can throw at me. But this crosses a line. This does not just cross a line. This is criminal interference with property rights. She walked back to her truck and returned with a heavy equipment case. Let me get set up. This will take about 2 hours to reestablish all 4 corners and document everything properly. You have somewhere to be? Just here. Good. I'm going to need you to walk me through the whole situation. Everything the HOA has done, every objection, every delay. If this goes legal, context matters. Over the next 2 hours, I watched Taylor work with the kind of precision that made me understand why survey stakes were not something you just replaced with a guess and a prayer. She set up a GPS rover on a tripod, calibrated it to satellite reference points, and then used the equipment to locate the exact coordinates that had been recorded with the county. At each corner, she drove a new steel rebar stake 2 feet into the ground, attached an orange plastic cap marked with her license number, and flagged it with high visibility tape. Between measurements, we talked. I told her about Karen's campaign against my house plans, the architectural review committee meetings, the constant stream of violation notices for things that were not violations. Taylor listened and took notes, occasionally asking pointed questions about dates and documentation. Do you have all the correspondence with the HOA? She asked. Every email, every letter. I have been documenting everything because I had a feeling this might get ugly. Smart. You're going to need that. She moved to the western boundary, set up her equipment again. How long have you been a member of this HOA? Since I closed on the property 2 months ago. Membership is mandatory in the subdivision covenants. And the president, Karen Ridgway, she lives nearby? 3 lots down, across the road. Big brick colonial with a white vinyl fence. I know the house. We surveyed that property about 8 years ago when she added a pool. She was difficult then, too. Taylor adjusted her tripod. There's a personality type that gravitates to HOA leadership. They like control, they like rules, and they really like enforcing those rules on other people. Usually it is just annoying. This is the first time I have seen one escalate to property crime. What happens now? Now I finish setting your monuments. Then I go back to my office and prepare a detailed report showing the original monuments, the evidence of tampering, and the corrective action. That report gets filed with the Register of Deeds this afternoon. Legally, the land court is reissuing your boundary markers with full certification. Karen cannot touch them. She touched them once. And if she does it again, it is a second offense and the penalties get worse. Plus, with my report on file, there's a clear pattern of interference. Taylor stood and wiped sweat from her forehead. The June heat was climbing into the 90s. You said you have a witness. I need to talk to him. The neighbor kid? Bobby Chen? If he is willing to give a statement, that makes this case a lot stronger. Tampering with survey monuments requires proof of intent. A witness who saw the HOA president pulling them up is gold. I called Bobby's cell phone. He answered on the third ring, sounding cautious. Hey, Daniel. Bobby, I have the surveyor here who set the original stakes. Her name is Taylor. She needs to hear what you saw Sunday night. Can you talk to her? I guess. Is this going to be a big thing? It might be, but you are not in trouble, and what you saw is important. Hold on. I handed the phone to Taylor. She walked a few paces away and spoke to Bobby in a calm, professional tone. I could not hear the whole conversation, but it lasted about 5 minutes. When she came back, she looked satisfied. He is a good witness. Consistent timeline, specific details, no signs he's making it up. He saw Karen Ridgway at approximately 8:45 Sunday evening using a flashlight and a tool to remove survey stakes from your property. He watched for several minutes before riding away. That is solid. Will he need to testify or something? Depends on how far you want to take this. At minimum, his statement supports my incident report. If you file criminal charges, he might need to give a statement to the police. But that is your call. I thought about it. Karen had been a thorn in my side for 2 months, but did I really want to file criminal charges over survey stakes? Then I thought about the construction timeline, the loan bleeding interest, the contractor who might move on to another job if I kept delaying. I thought about every petty objection, every roadblock, every attempt to stop me from building a house on land I owned. I want to file charges, Taylor nodded. Then let me finish this survey work and get my report filed. Once that's on record with the county, you have official documentation of the tampering. After that, you take the report and the witness statement to the Chatham County Sheriff's Office and file a complaint. They will investigate, and if they find probable cause, they will charge her. How long does that take? No idea. I am a surveyor, not a lawyer, but my part will be done today. She returned to her equipment, made a few final adjustments. Last corner coming up. By 2 p.m, all 4 boundary corners were re-established. New steel stakes, new orange caps, new flagging. Taylor photographed each one from multiple angles, then had me stand in the frame for scale references. She documented the empty holes where the original stakes had been, the torn flagging I had found, everything. That is it for the field work, she said, packing up her gear. I will be back at the office in an hour, and I will have the full report filed with the Register of Deeds by end of business today. You will get a certified copy in the mail, but I can email you a PDF by tonight. What do I owe you for this? The reestablishment is covered under your original survey contract, emergency service call. The detailed report and filing is going to be another $300, but honestly, given what happened, I am just billing time and materials. This is professional pride now. Nobody messes with my survey work. I wrote her a check. Thank you. Seriously, you turned this around faster than I thought possible. That is what happens when everything is already on record. If this had been an old boundary dispute with no documentation, we would be looking at weeks of research. But we surveyed this property 9 days ago and recorded it immediately. The land court has your coordinates on file, so reissuing the monuments is just a matter of going to the recorded data and putting steel back in the ground. She hefted her equipment case into the truck. Call me if anything else happens, and good luck with the sheriff. She drove away, leaving me standing in my lot with 4 new survey stakes in the beginning of a plan. I took photos of each corner, texted them to my contractor with the message, "Back in business, Friday still good." Then, I drove into Pittsburgh to the Chatham County Sheriff's Office. The deputy at the front desk looked maybe 25, crew cut and crisp uniform. I explained that I needed to file a complaint about tampered survey markers. He handed me a form and pointed to a waiting area. Fill this out. An investigator will call you. How long does that usually take? Depends on the case. Could be today, could be next week. I filled out the form, trying to keep my handwriting legible and my facts straight. Name, address, description of the incident, name of the suspect, name of the witness. I attached a note explaining that the surveyor was filing a detailed report with the Register of Deeds and that I would provide a copy as soon as I had it. The deputy took the form, scanned it, and raised his eyebrows. HOA president? Yeah. We get more calls about HOA disputes than just about anything else, but this is the first time I have seen someone accused of pulling up survey stakes. Is that actually a crime? If it is what you say it is, yeah. Interfering with survey monuments is a misdemeanor. Let me get this to an investigator. He disappeared into the back. 5 minutes later, a plainclothes detective came out, a woman in her 40s with graying hair and the tired eyes of someone who had seen every flavor of human pettiness. Mr. Drake? I'm Detective Sandra Melton. Come on back. I followed her to a small interview room with a table and 2 chairs. She sat down and reviewed my complaint form. Walk me through this. I did. The survey, the stakes, the HOA objections, the missing monuments, the witness, the re-establishment by the surveyor. Detective Melton took notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions. And you were sure the witness saw Karen Ridgway specifically? He knows her by name and by sight. She is the HOA president. Everyone in the subdivision knows her. How old is this witness? 12. Is he reliable? The surveyor talked to him and thought he was credible. Consistent story, specific details. Detective Melton nodded. I will need to interview him myself, and I will need the surveyor's report once it is filed. Do you have contact information for her? I gave her Taylor's business card. She said the report would be filed with the Register of Deeds by end of day today. Good. I will pull that tomorrow morning. She closed her notebook. Mr. Drake, I'm going to be straight with you. HOA disputes are messy. They are personal, they are emotional, and they usually come down to he said, she said. But if you have a witness and professional documentation that someone deliberately removed survey markers from your property, that is different. That is evidence. So you will investigate? I will investigate. I will interview the witness, I will review the surveyor's report, and I will talk to Karen Ridgway. If the evidence supports your complaint, I will refer charges to the district attorney, but that is a process. It does not happen overnight. How long? Couple of weeks probably, maybe longer depending on what I find. I felt frustration rising. My construction timeline is already blown. Every day I wait costs me money. I understand. But criminal investigations have to be thorough. If we charge someone, we have to be able to prove it. She stood. I will be in touch. Keep documenting everything. If the HOA retaliates or if anything else happens to your property, call me immediately. She handed me her card. I left the sheriff's office feeling like I had done what I could, but knowing it would not be fast enough. The legal system moved on its own schedule, and my construction loan did not care about due process. I drove back to the property. The new survey stakes stood bright and defiant at each corner, orange flags snapping in the breeze. I walked the boundaries, checking each one. Solid, professional, unmistakable. And then I saw Karen Ridgway standing at the property line. She was dressed in white linen pants and a blue silk blouse, her blonde hair perfect despite the heat. She stood with her arms crossed, staring at the new survey stakes like they were a personal insult. Daniel. Karen. I see you had the survey company out again. I had them replace the stakes that someone pulled up. Pulled up? Are you sure they did not just fall over? These old properties can have settling issues. They were pulled up deliberately. I have a witness. Her expression did not change, but something flickered behind her eyes. Calculation, maybe, or concern. A witness to what exactly? A witness who saw you removing the stakes Sunday night. Now the mask slipped. Just for a second, but I saw it. Anger and fear mixed together, the reaction of someone who had been caught. That is a serious accusation. It is a serious crime. Tampering with survey monuments is a Class 1 misdemeanor in North Carolina. I did not touch your stakes. Then you will not have any problem explaining that to the sheriff's detective who is investigating. Karen's face flushed. You called the police. I filed a complaint. The surveyor filed a report with the Register of Deeds documenting the tampering and the corrective action. And I have a witness statement. So yeah, I called the police. Over survey stakes? Over property crime. You do not get to sabotage my construction project because you do not like my house design. Your house design is inappropriate for this subdivision. It does not fit the character of the neighborhood. My house design meets every requirement in the covenants. The Architectural Review Committee approved it. The county approved it. You do not get to override all of that because you do not like modern architecture. The committee approved it under protest. They approved it. That is what matters. Karen stepped closer, her voice dropping to something that was supposed to sound reasonable but came out condescending. Daniel, you are new here. You do not understand how this community works. We have standards. We have expectations. Your house, the way you are planning it, is going to lower property values for everyone around you. That is your opinion, not a fact. It is the opinion of many residents. Then many residents can look the other way when they drive past my property. I own this land. I have the legal right to build within the covenants, and you have no right to interfere. I did not interfere with anything. Then explain to the detective where you were Sunday night at 8:45. Karen's jaw tightened. This conversation is over. You will be hearing from the HOA attorney. Good. I have a few things to discuss with them too. She turned and walked back toward the road, her white linen pants bright against the red dirt. I watched her go, adrenaline making my hands shake. I had just accused the HOA president of a crime to her face. There was no going back from this. My phone buzzed. Text from Taylor. Report filed with Register of Deeds. Certified copy attached. If you need anything else, call. I opened the attachment. 10 pages of detailed survey documentation, photographs, measurements, and a professional opinion statement that the boundary monuments had been deliberately removed and that the corrective action had been taken based on the recorded plat filed with the county land court. It was thorough, technical, and damning. I forwarded it to Detective Melton with a note, surveyor's report as discussed. Then I called my contractor. Mike, we are back on. Stakes are replaced, county certification is filed, we are good for Friday. You sure? I do not want to mobilize the excavator and then have to stop again. I am sure. The surveyor filed everything with the land court this afternoon. The boundaries are reestablished and legally certified. If anyone touches those stakes again, it is a second offense. What about the HOA? Let me worry about the HOA. All right, Friday morning, 7 a.m., I will have the excavator on site. I hung up and sat down on my lumber stack, looking at the property that had become a battleground. 4 corners, 4 stakes, 4 points that defined everything I was trying to build. They looked so simple, just orange flags on steel posts. But they represented something bigger. Property rights, legal process, the idea that you could own a piece of land and actually do something with it. That evening, I got a call from a number I did not recognize. I answered cautiously. Is this Daniel Drake? Yes. This is Robert Wu with the law firm of Wu and Associates. I represent the Pinehurst Meadows Homeowners Association. Here it comes, I thought. Okay. Mr. Drake, it has come to my attention that you filed a police complaint against the HOA president, Karen Ridgway, alleging that she tampered with survey markers on your property. That is correct. I am calling to see if we can resolve this matter without involving law enforcement. The HOA is prepared to offer compensation for any delays to your construction schedule if you will withdraw the complaint. How much compensation? That would depend on the documented costs, but we are willing to negotiate in good faith. And if I withdraw the complaint, what happens to Karen? Nothing. The matter would be closed. So she faces no consequences for committing property crime? Mr. Drake, we are not admitting that any crime occurred, but in the interest of community harmony, we are willing to discuss a settlement. Let me be clear. I have a witness who saw Karen Ridgway removing survey stakes from my property. I have a professional surveyor's report documenting the tampering and filing corrective action with the county land court. I have evidence. This is not a negotiation. Everything is a negotiation, Mr. Drake. Not this. Karen broke the law to sabotage my construction project. She does not get to buy her way out of that. You are making a mistake. HOA disputes are best resolved internally. This is not an HOA dispute anymore. This is a criminal investigation. Talk to your client about that. I hung up. My heart was pounding. I'd just turned down a settlement offer from a lawyer. Maybe that was stupid. Maybe I should have taken the money and moved on, but the principle stuck in my throat. Karen had not just annoyed me or delayed me, she had committed a crime. And if she got away with it, what would she do next? The next morning, Detective Melton called. "Mr. Drake, I talked to your witness, Bobby Chen. Sweet kid. His story is consistent and detailed. He positively identified Karen Ridgway removing survey markers from your property Sunday evening. So what happens now? Now I interview Mrs. Ridgway. I will do that later today. Depending on her statement, I will make a recommendation to the district attorney about charges. She is already lawyered up. The HOA attorney called me last night trying to get me to drop the complaint. That is her right, but it does not change the investigation." I heard papers rustling in the background. I also reviewed the surveyor's report. It is very thorough. If this goes to court, that report is strong evidence. "So you think there is a case?" "I think there is evidence of a crime. Whether the DA wants to prosecute is above my pay grade, but I am going to recommend charges." "Thank you." "Do not thank me yet. This is just the beginning. Even if charges are filed, it could be months before anything happens. And Mrs. Ridgway can fight it." "I understand. One more thing. The surveyor who wrote this report, Taylor Dawson, she is very good, very precise. I have seen a lot of survey reports, and this is top tier. If you need her to testify, she will be a strong witness." "I will let her know." I hung up and immediately called Taylor. "Precision Land Surveys, this is Taylor." "It is Daniel. The detective just called. She said your report is excellent and that if this goes to court, you would be a strong witness." "Good. I hope it does not come to that, but I will testify if needed. Survey integrity is not optional." "I appreciate everything you have done. Seriously, you turned this around in hours when it could have taken weeks. That is what happens when the work is already recorded with the land court. Your property boundaries exist in the county records. They are not up for debate. Someone pulling up the physical markers does not change the legal reality. It just creates a criminal act. The HOA tried to get me to drop the complaint last night. Their attorney called offering a settlement. Did you take it? No. Good. If you had, Karen would just do this to the next person she does not like. People like her need to learn that there are consequences. That is what I figured. How's your construction timeline looking? Excavation starts Friday, foundation the week after if all goes well. It will go well. Your corners are solid now. If anyone touches those stakes, they are looking at a second offense in my full fury. I laughed. Thanks, Taylor. Anytime. And hey, once your house is framed, I want to see it. I like modern architecture. Send me photos. I will do that. We hung up and I felt something shift. This was not just about property stakes anymore. It was about people standing up for their work, their rights, their piece of the world. Taylor could have just replaced the stakes and sent me a bill. Instead, she had treated this as an attack on her profession and responded with precision and force. Friday morning, Mike Santos showed up with an excavator on a flatbed trailer. The machine was massive, bright yellow, treads that bit into the red clay like teeth. His crew unloaded it, and Mike walked the building pad with a tablet showing the foundation plan. "Stakes look good," he said. "These the new ones?" "Replaced Wednesday, certified and filed with the county." "HOA going to give us any more trouble?" "Not if they know what is good for them." "All right, let us dig." The excavator roared to life, black smoke coughing from the stack, and then the bucket bit into earth. Red clay peeled away in layers, revealing darker soil beneath. The foundation pad took shape, corner stakes guiding every cut. I watched from the edge of the property, feeling the vibration through my boots, and thought about how much depended on those 4 points. Without them, this was just dirt moving. With them, it was the beginning of a house. By noon, the pad was roughed in. Mike flagged the corners with lime paint, marking where the concrete forms would go. The excavator took a break, the operator climbing down to drink water and wipe sweat. It was mid-90s again, humidity making the air thick. "Looking good," Mike said, walking over. "Inspector coming Monday to check the pad before we pour footings. You got your foundation permit sorted?" "Permit is active. Inspector knows the schedule." "Then we are on track. 2 weeks, you will have a foundation." I felt relief for the first time in days. Progress, momentum. The thing Karen had tried to stop was happening anyway. That afternoon, Detective Melton called again. I interviewed Karen Ridgway this morning. And? She denied everything, said she was home Sunday night, never went near your property, has no idea who pulled up the stakes. She is lying. I know. Her story does not match the witness statement, and she could not provide any alibi. Her husband was out of town. She was home alone. No proof either way, except that your witness saw her. So what now? Now I write up my findings and submit them to the district attorney with a recommendation to charge her with tampering with survey monuments under North Carolina General Statute 14147. The DA will review and decide whether to prosecute. How long does that take? Usually a couple of weeks, but given that this is a relatively minor crime, no violence, no priors, it might take longer. The DA has bigger cases to worry about. So she just walks around free while this drags out? That is how the system works. Unless you think she is a flight risk or a danger to the community, there is no reason to arrest her before charges are filed. She is not dangerous, just vindictive. Then we wait. Keep documenting everything. If she retaliates in any way, call me immediately. Retaliation can be a separate charge. Understood. I spent the weekend watching my foundation pad take shape. Mike's crew worked Saturday, setting forms and laying rebar. The geometry emerged from the dirt, precise and angular, exactly where the survey stakes said it should be. Sunday, I walked the property alone, checking each corner. The stakes were still there, undisturbed. Monday morning, the county inspector arrived. He was an older guy, maybe 60, with a clipboard and a measuring tape, and the slow deliberation of someone who had seen every shortcut in the construction business. Daniel Drake? That's me. I'm here to inspect the foundation excavation before you pour. All yours. He walked the pad, checking measurements against the permit drawings, verifying that the corners matched the survey stakes, that the depth was correct, that the forms were plumb. He took his time, making notes, occasionally asking Mike questions about the rebar spacing or the soil compaction. Finally, he signed off. You're good to pour. Foundation permit is active, Mike grinned. Concrete truck is coming tomorrow. Wait, the inspector looked at me. You are the one who had the survey stake issue last week? Yeah, someone pulled them up. We had to re-establish the corners. I heard about that. Karen Ridgway, right? You know her? Everyone in the county permitting office knows her. She calls in complaints about every new build in Pinehurst Meadows. Half the time the complaints are not even valid. She just does not like change. She pulled up my survey stakes to stop this project. I believe it. She has been a thorn in our side for years, but the law is the law. If your survey is recorded and your permit is active, she cannot stop you. She tried. And failed. That is what matters. He tapped his clipboard. You are approved. Build your house. The concrete trucks arrived Tuesday morning. Massive drums turning, chutes extended. The pour took 6 hours, crew working the wet concrete into the forms, smoothing and leveling. By evening, the foundation footings were set, and the beginning of my house was visible in the landscape, geometry replacing wilderness. I took photos and sent them to Taylor with the message, "Foundation underway, stakes held." She replied within minutes, "Beautiful, modern architecture needs good bones, keep me posted." That evening, I got a call from Detective Melton. Good news. The DA is filing charges against Karen Ridgway, tampering with survey monuments, Class 1 misdemeanor. She will be arraigned next week. I sat down hard on my lumber stack. They are really charging her? They are. The witness statement and the surveyor's report were enough. This is not a he said, she said anymore. This is documented evidence of a crime. What happens at the arraignment? She will be formally charged, she will enter a plea, and the judge will set conditions, probably release on her own recognizance since this is nonviolent. But if she pleads not guilty, there will be a trial. Do you think she will fight it? Hard to say. If her lawyer is smart, he will advise her to take a plea deal. First offense, misdemeanor, no violence. She would probably get probation and a fine, but if she fights it and loses, the penalty could be worse. And I have to testify? If it goes to trial, yes, you and the witness and the surveyor. I will be there. Good. I will keep you updated. I hung up and sat in the gathering dusk, listening to the evening sounds of rural North Carolina, crickets and tree frogs, a barred owl calling from the pine. My foundation was poured, my house was starting, and Karen Ridgway was going to face consequences. The arraignment happened the following Tuesday. I was not there, but Detective Melton called afterward to fill me in. She pleaded not guilty. Seriously? Her attorney is fighting it, claiming mistaken identity, unreliable witness, lack of direct evidence. The judge set a trial date for 8 weeks from now. So this drags on. It drags on, but in the meantime, the judge issued a stay-away order. Karen cannot come within 100 feet of your property. If she violates that, she will be arrested. Small comfort. It is something, and Daniel, the judge, took this seriously. He called tampering with survey markers an attack on property rights and legal order. Those were his words. He's not inclined to let this slide. Over the next month, my house grew. Foundation walls went up, backfill was compacted, the first floor deck was framed. Every week brought visible progress, and every week I checked the survey stakes. They remained untouched. Taylor stopped by one afternoon to see the progress. She climbed out of her truck with a hard hat and a camera, grinning at the frame structure rising from the red clay. "This is fantastic," she said. "Clean lines, good proportions. Exactly what modern design should be." "Thanks, I'm pretty happy with how it is coming together." She walked around the foundation, checking the corners. "Your builder did a good job respecting the survey. Everything is where it is supposed to be." "That is because your stakes were exactly right." "They were exactly right because the land court had them on record." That is the beauty of certified survey work. It is not opinion, it is fact. We stood together looking at the house frame, and I realized how much I appreciated her competence. In a situation that could have spiraled into months of legal wrangling, she had cut through with precision and speed. The land court reissued my corners within a day because the work had been done right the first time. "How is the trial prep going?" she asked. "The DA called last week. They want me to walk through my testimony, make sure I'm ready. Bobby's going to testify too." "And me?" "You are the star witness. Your report is the backbone of the case." "Good. I am ready." She took a few photos of the framing. "You know, I do not usually get this involved in client disputes, but something about this case made me angry. Survey work is foundational to property rights. If people can just pull up stakes because they do not like someone's house plans, the whole system falls apart. I am glad you took it seriously. I take my work seriously, and I take property crime seriously." She put her camera away. "When is the trial?" 3 weeks. I will be there." The trial happened on a sweltering Thursday in August, Chatham County Courthouse, a modern building in Pittsburgh with air conditioning that struggled against the heat. I arrived early, wearing a button-down shirt and slacks, nervous in a way I had not anticipated. Bobby Chen was there with his mother, who looked both protective and annoyed that her son was involved in legal proceedings. Taylor arrived in professional attire, her usual field clothes replaced by slacks and a blazer. She carried a leather portfolio with her report and documentation. The DA was a young woman named Lisa Chen, no relation to Bobby, who walked me through what to expect. "This should be straightforward," she said. "We have a witness, we have professional documentation, we have evidence. The defense is going to argue mistaken identity and unreliable witness, but our case is strong." Karen Ridgway arrived with her attorney, Robert Wu. She was dressed in a conservative blue dress, hair perfect, expression neutral. She did not look at me. The judge was an older man named Henry Brooks, gray-haired and serious. He called the court to order, and we began. The DA laid out the case in clear terms. Survey stakes had been removed from my property. A witness saw Karen Ridgway removing them. A professional surveyor documented the tampering and filed corrective action with the land court. This was not a dispute. This was a crime. Bobby testified first. He was nervous but clear. He described riding past my property on Sunday evening, seeing Karen Ridgway with a flashlight and a tool, watching her pull up survey stakes and put them in a bag. The defense attorney tried to poke holes, asking about lighting conditions and distance and whether Bobby was sure of the identification, but Bobby held firm. "I know Mrs. Ridgway. She is the HOA president. I have seen her at neighborhood meetings. It was her." I testified next, walking through the timeline. The survey, the stakes, the missing markers, the impact on my construction schedule. The defense attorney asked why I was so sure the stakes had been deliberately removed rather than knocked over by accident. I explained the clean holes, the missing flagging, the fact that all four corners had been pulled. Then Taylor took the stand. She was impressive, calm, precise, unshakable. She explained how survey stakes are set, how they are tied to recorded coordinates, how the land court maintains official records of boundary monuments. She walked through her report, showing photographs and measurements, documenting the tampering and the corrective action. "Mike, in your professional opinion," the DA asked, "were these survey markers deliberately removed?" "Yes. The evidence is clear. The stakes were pulled from the ground by hand or tool. The holes show leverage marks. This was not accident or weather. This was deliberate interference." "And when you re-established the corners, what did you base that on?" "The recorded plat filed with the Chatham County Register of Deeds. The original survey included GPS coordinates for each boundary monument. Those coordinates are on file with the land court. So reissuing the markers was a matter of going to the official record and setting new stakes at the certified locations. So the land court, in effect, reissued the boundary markers." "Correct. The physical markers were replaced, but the legal boundaries never changed. They exist in the county records regardless of whether the physical stakes are present." The defense attorney tried to challenge her, questioning the accuracy of GPS, the possibility of error, the chain of custody for the recorded plat. Taylor demolished each objection with technical precision and professional confidence. "Survey accuracy is regulated by the North Carolina Board of Examiners for Engineers and Surveyors," she said. "Our GPS equipment is calibrated to sub-meter accuracy. The recorded plat was filed with the county within 24 hours of completing the original survey. The chain of custody is documented and unbroken. These corners are exactly where they are supposed to be." When Taylor stepped down, the defense called Karen to the stand. She denied everything. She had been home Sunday evening. She had never gone to my property. She had no reason to remove survey stakes. She was being targeted because of her role as HOA president, because I did not like her decisions. The DA cross-examined her carefully. "Mrs. Ridgway, do you have any proof you were home Sunday evening?" "My husband was out of town. I was alone." "So no alibi." "I do not need an alibi. I did not do anything wrong." "Are you aware that a witness placed you at Mr. Drake's property that evening?" "The witness is mistaken." "Are you aware that it is a crime to tamper with survey monuments?" "I am aware. That is why I did not do it." "Have you opposed Mr. Drake's construction project?" "I have raised concerns through proper HOA channels. That is my responsibility as president." "Have you filed multiple objections to his building plans?" "I have raised issues that needed to be addressed." "Have you attempted to delay his construction?" "I have ensured that he complies with subdivision covenants." "By pulling up his survey stakes?" "I did not pull up his survey stakes." The DA let that hang in the air, then sat down. Closing arguments were brief. The DA summarized the evidence: witness testimony, professional documentation, motive. The defense argued reasonable doubt, mistaken identity, overzealous prosecution of a community volunteer. Judge Brooks took 20 minutes to deliberate, then returned with his decision. "Having reviewed the evidence and testimony, I find the defendant, Karen Ridgway, guilty of tampering with survey monuments under North Carolina General Statute 14-147. The witness testimony is credible and specific. The survey documentation is thorough and professional. The defendant's denial is not supported by evidence. This court takes property crime seriously, particularly crimes that undermine the legal foundation of land ownership." Karen's face went white. Her attorney whispered something in her ear. Judge Brooks continued, "Sentencing will be held in 2 weeks. The defendant is released on her own recognizance with the condition that she not contact Mr. Drake or enter his property. Court is adjourned." Outside the courthouse, Taylor and I stood in the August heat, relieved and exhausted. "That was intense," I said. "That was justice," Taylor replied. "She committed a crime and she was held accountable." "Thank you for testifying. You made the case." "The evidence made the case. I just presented it," she smiled. How's the house coming? Framing is almost done. Roof goes on next week. Send me photos. I want to see the finished product. I will. And Taylor, seriously, you did not just replace stakes, you fought for property rights. That matters. That is the job. Survey work is not just about measurements. It is about making sure people can own land, know where their boundaries are, and build their lives. Karen tried to undermine that. I am glad she failed. 2 weeks later, Karen Ridgway was sentenced to 12 months of probation, a $1,000 fine, and community service. The judge also ordered her to reimburse me for the survey reestablishment costs and any construction delays caused by the missing stakes. The HOA insurance covered the reimbursement, just over $8,000. Karen resigned as HOA president the next day. The subdivision elected a new president, a retired engineer named Tom, who sent me a letter apologizing for the whole mess and assuring me that the Architectural Review Committee would function properly going forward. My house rose through the fall. Roof, siding, windows, modern and clean, exactly what I had planned. The survey stakes remained at each corner, orange flags fading in the weather but still marking the boundaries that had almost been stolen. In October, Mike Santos called me to the site for the final framing milestone. "We are putting up the ridge beam today. You should be here." I drove out to the property and found his crew gathered around the house frame, the last structural beam sitting on sawhorses. Mike handed me a marker. "Deet, sign it. House tradition. The owner signs the ridge beam before it goes up." I signed my name on the heavy timber, then added the date. Mike nodded approval. "All right. Let us get it up there." The crew lifted the beam with a telehandler, guiding it into place at the roof peak. Bolts were driven, connections were made, and the house skeleton was complete. Structure where there had been only stakes and promises. That evening, I called Taylor. "Ridge beam went up today. House is framed." "Congratulations. How does it feel?" "Like I survived a war, but a good war, a necessary war." "That is accurate. You fought for your property rights and won." "We fought. You, me, the legal system. It took all of us." "True. Hey, are you doing anything Saturday afternoon?" "Not particularly. Why?" "I want to see the house, and I was thinking we could grab dinner after. There is a good barbecue place in Pittsburgh." I smiled. "That sounds great." "Good. I will text you a time." Saturday afternoon, Taylor arrived with her camera and a bottle of wine. She walked through the framed house, photographing angles and details, clearly delighted by the design. "This is really well done. Your architect knew what they were doing." "I drew it myself, actually." She turned, surprised. "You designed this?" "I'm a civil engineer by training. I've always wanted to design my own house, so I took a few architecture courses, learned the software, and drew what I wanted." "That makes it even better. You fought to build something you actually created." We stood on the unfinished second floor, looking out through the window frames at the pine forest beyond. The light was golden, evening sun slanting through the trees. The survey stakes were visible at each corner of the lot, 4 points defining everything I had built. "You know what I realized during all this?" I said. "What?" "Those stakes are not just property markers, they are symbols. They represent the idea that you can own something, that you can build something, that the law will protect your right to do it. Karen tried to erase that, but the land court reissued them anyway, because the legal reality is stronger than one person's vandalism." "That is exactly right. Survey stakes are physical representations of legal truth. You can pull them up, but the boundary still exists. The property line is still there, recorded and certified. That is why tampering with them is a crime. You are not just pulling up flags, you are attacking the foundation of property rights." We went to dinner at the barbecue place, a local joint with picnic tables and meat by the pound. We talked about construction and survey work and the absurdity of HOA politics. Taylor told me stories from other jobs, boundary disputes that made my situation look tame. I told her about my engineering work, the bridges and roads I'd helped design. "Why did you leave that to build a house?" she asked. "I got tired of designing things for other people. I wanted to create something for myself, something permanent." "And now you have." "Thanks to you," she smiled. "Thanks to the land court. I just put the stakes back where they belonged." Over the next few months, the house was finished. Drywall, paint, flooring, fixtures. The modern design I had fought for came to life, Clean lines and natural light, exactly what I had drawn. In December, I moved in. The first night, I stood on the finished deck and looked at the property corners. The survey stakes were still there, weathered but holding, marking the boundaries that had almost been stolen. I invited Taylor to the housewarming. She arrived with a gift, a framed copy of the survey plat showing my property boundaries and the certified coordinates. "I thought you might want this on the wall," she said, "a reminder of what you fought for." "It is perfect." We stood in the living room, surrounded by friends and neighbors, including Bobby Chen and his mother, Mike Santos and his crew, even Detective Melton, who had stopped by out of curiosity to see the house that had caused so much trouble. Taylor raised her glass. To property rights, legal process, and building something worth fighting for. Everyone drank to that. Later, after the guests had left, Taylor and I sat on the deck watching the stars come out over the pine forest. The air was cold, December settling into North Carolina with clear skies and sharp cold. "You know," she said, "when you called me that day about the missing stakes, I was just doing my job. Replace the monuments, file the report, move on. But this turned into something bigger." It did. I'm glad we did it right. I'm glad we fought back. And I'm glad I met you. I looked at her, this woman who had taken my crisis and turned it into a crusade for professional integrity and property rights, who had documented everything with precision and testified with confidence, who had made the land court reissue my boundaries not as a favor, but as a legal fact. "I'm glad I met you too." She smiled and leaned against me, and we sat there in the cold looking at the house that had almost not been built. The survey stakes stood at each corner, 4 points of light in the darkness, marking the boundaries of something permanent. 6 months later, in June, we were sitting on that same deck when Taylor told me she was starting her own survey firm. She had left Precision Land Surveys to go independent, specializing in residential boundary work and property rights cases. "I am calling it Cornerstone Survey," she said, "because every property starts with the corners. That is perfect. And I want you to be my consulting engineer when I need someone to review site plans or drainage or structural issues. Partnership." I would love that. We shook hands, then laughed at the formality of it, but it felt right. A partnership built on mutual respect and shared values, property rights, legal process, doing the work right the first time. That summer, Karen Ridgway moved out of Pinehurst Meadows. I heard through the neighborhood grapevine that she had bought a condo in Raleigh, something with a strict association where she could be just another resident instead of the president. Tom, the new HOA president, told me she had faced pressure to resign from the board entirely, and eventually she had just left. "Good riddance," Tom said. "She made everyone miserable for years. You were just the first one to actually fight back." I did not feel vindictive about it. I felt relieved. The subdivision settled into a quieter rhythm. The Architectural Review Committee started approving projects instead of blocking them. Neighbors who had been afraid to build or renovate started submitting plans. The whole community loosened up. And my house stood as proof that property rights mattered, that survey stakes were more than decorations, that the land court would reissue boundaries as many times as necessary to protect legal ownership. One evening in late summer, Taylor and I were on the deck again, watching fireflies rise from the grass. She had been spending more time at my house, keeping clothes in the closet, cooking dinner on weeknights. We had not talked about what we were, but it felt like something permanent was being built. "I have a question," she said. "Okay. What if we added a survey marker right here? A permanent monument, bronze cap, the whole thing. Not for legal purposes, just as a symbol. To remember what we fought for." I thought about it. Where would we put it? Center of the property, equidistant from all 4 corners. A 5th point that represents everything the other 4 protect. I like that. We installed it the next weekend. A bronze cap set in concrete, engraved with the property coordinates and the date. Not a legal boundary marker, but a personal monument. A reminder that property rights are worth defending, that survey stakes matter, that sometimes you have to fight for what you build. Taylor and I were married the following spring, on the deck of the house that had brought us together. Bobby Chen was there, grinning as he watched the ceremony. Mike Santos came with his crew. Detective Melton showed up with a gift, a framed copy of the guilty verdict. Even Tom, the HOA president, attended, offering congratulations and apologies for everything that had happened. The ceremony was officiated by Judge Brooks, who'd presided over Karen's trial. He opened with a joke about this being a much happier occasion than the last time he had been involved in my property issues. Then he spoke about foundations, both literal and metaphorical, about building something strong enough to last. Property ownership is not just about land, he said. It is about stability, permanence, the ability to create something that outlasts you. Daniel and Taylor fought for that, and now they are building something even more permanent together. We said our vows standing at the exact center of the property on the bronze monument we had set together. 4 corners surrounded us, survey stakes still standing after 2 years, marking the boundaries of everything we had fought for and everything we had built. After the ceremony, Taylor and I walked the property line one more time, checking each corner. The stakes were solid, the flags faded but present, the boundaries clear and uncontested. The land court had reissued them once, and they would stand as long as we needed them. "You know," Taylor said, "I have surveyed hundreds of properties in my career, but this one is special." Because of the fight? Because of what it represents. Most people never think about survey stakes. They are just orange flags in the dirt. But they are actually the foundation of everything. Property rights, legal order, the ability to own something and defend it. You understood that from day one. I understood that someone was trying to take something from me, and I was not going to let them. That is what makes this house special. It is not just architecture. It is proof that property rights matter, that the law works, that sometimes you have to fight for what is yours. We stood at the northeast corner, where I had first discovered the missing stakes 2 years ago. The new marker stood firm, orange flag snapping in the spring breeze. The hole where Karen had pulled the original stake was long gone, filled and healed by time and weather. "Minutes," I said. "That is what amazes me. Minutes after she pulled these stakes, the land court reissued them. Not weeks, not months. The same day. Because the work had been done right, because the boundaries were recorded, because the system worked the way it was supposed to." "That is the power of certified survey work," Taylor said. "The physical stakes are important, but they are not the truth. The truth is in the county records, the recorded plat, the coordinates filed with the land court. Karen could pull up stakes every day for the rest of her life, and it would not change the legal boundaries. The land court would keep reissuing them because the law is stronger than vandalism." We walked back to the house, to the party continuing on the deck, to the life we were building together. The survey stakes stood at each corner, 4 points defining everything. And at the center, the bronze monument we had set together, marking the spot where 2 people had decided to build something permanent. Years later, when people asked how Taylor and I met, I would tell them the story of the stolen survey stakes, how the HOA president tried to sabotage my construction project, how a professional surveyor turned a crisis into a crusade, how the land court reissued my boundaries within a day because the work had been done right the first time, and I would show them the framed survey plat hanging in our living room, the one Taylor gave me at the housewarming. 4 corners marked with certified coordinates, a legal document showing that property boundaries are not opinions or suggestions. They are facts, recorded and protected by law. The house still stands, modern and clean against the North Carolina pine. The survey stakes still mark the corners, orange flags replaced periodically, but the steel monument's permanent. And at the center of the property, the bronze cap we set together reminds us that some things are worth fighting for. Property rights, legal process, the idea that you can own a piece of land, build something on it, and defend your right to do so. Karen Ridgway tried to take that from me. But the land court reissued every stake she pulled because the law is stronger than one person's vindictiveness. And in the end, that is what mattered. Not the conflict or the trial or even the house itself. What mattered was the principle. That survey stakes represent something fundamental, that property boundaries are sacred, that when someone tries to erase your rights, the system will restore them. Minutes, that is all it took. Minutes after the theft, the land court reissued my corners. Minutes that proved the law worked, that justice could be fast, that doing things right the first time meant protection when things went wrong. Taylor built her survey firm into one of the most respected in central North Carolina. Cornerstone Survey became known for precision work and fierce defense of property rights. When clients called with boundary disputes or missing monuments, Taylor responded with the same speed and competence she had shown on my property. Document everything, reference the recorded plat, get the land court involved if necessary. Property boundaries are not negotiable. I continued my engineering work, eventually partnering with Taylor on residential developments where survey and site design overlapped. We became known as the couple who took property rights seriously, who would fight for clients when neighbors or HOAs overstepped. And we told our story at industry conferences, at community meetings, to clients who were facing their own Karen Ridgeways. We told them about the stolen stakes, the land court reissuance, the trial, the victory. We told them that property rights matter, that survey work is foundational, that sometimes you have to stand up and fight. Because in the end, that is what those 4 survey stakes represented. Not just property corners, but the principle that you can own something, build something, defend something, that the law will protect your rights if you do the work right, that even when someone tries to erase your boundaries, the land court will reissue them, because legal truth is stronger than vandalism. The house stands, the stakes stand, the boundaries hold. And every time I walk my property line, checking those 4 corners, I remember the fight that built this place, not just the physical construction, but the legal battle, the defense of property rights, the proof that survey stakes matter. Karen Ridgway pulled them up one Sunday night, thinking she could stop what I was building. The land court reissued them the next day, proving she could not. And that made all the difference.